We all know that great music masters like Bach, Mozart, Beethoven, etc. in history have had their legendary life. Rarely people ever wondered what they used to be when they were young. No doubt, like most prominent human, they were all child prodigy in the impression of most people. But were they? Or how? Have you ever wondered what their childhood feels like? What did they do when they were children? What was the first work they created, and what are those works looks like or sounds like? Then we might have some answer today.
As the only special example we listed today, Bach will be the most intricate instance to decipher, for the reason that he is the hardest composer to study in the list. He was the only master who was not a child prodigy. Bach demonstrated his great talent in a special manner.
Bach was not a child prodigy like Mozart, but he was the only master who never got direct instruction from prestigious predecessor. Instead, he was basically self-taught in a way, for the fact that he had been an orphan at 9 after the death of his mother and the remarriage of his father. Luckily, his brother John Christoph Bach adopted him and taught him music as much as he could. Under his brother's enlightenment, Bach learned a lot. John Christoph Bach was a student of Pachelbel, who composed the famous canon. Thereby, he's still capable to give J.S. Bach enough direction on music studying. Before the age of 15, Bach was well informed in the process of building organ. He watched the entire building project in church for years since day one on the construction of organ, which built the background for Bach in his keyboard music. Bach left his brother at 15 and started self-taught learning process by constantly studying different schools from masters like Vivaldi, which was his secret way to be a great master who changed the musical world. Bach's first work have no trace to find. Most of his work were lost in the river of time. It is estimated that more than half of Bach's work were lost for lacking of proper manner of preservation. However, we still have some assumption about his early work. Some musicologists deemed that BWV 947 was Bach's early work when he was around 14 years old. In most of Bach's prelude, he tended to write pieces with much strict and precise structure, but pieces like this one was so improvisational that was more like mid-Baroque period. So it is reasonable to believe this was what Bach did when he was young. The conclusion above might not be accurate. Then, in 1708 to 1717, we can firmly aware that Bach started to collect masterpieces from composers like Vivaldi for learning to write keyboard music by transcripting their concerto into solo keyboard music. He kept his deepest modesty to learn, even when he can already create great music. This piece was an example of his work in his 20s when he still practices as a student. This piece was adopted from Bach's 16 Konzert nach verschiedenen Meistern, means 16 concerto based on different masters. This set of pieces was Bach's student work. As the foundation of his great art, those pieces were not as magnificent as Goldberg variation, but still glowing in the universe of music.
The story about Mozart's childhood is less complicated because his father helped him to collect all his work since he was just 5 when he tried to compose music. Therefore, his history will be easier than Bach to trace.
Mozart was noticed by his family for having impressive music talent when he was just 3. His sister wrote in her diary, he often spent much time at the clavier, picking out thirds which he was ever striking, and his pleasure showed that it sounded good. In the 4th year of his age, his father, forgetting as it were, began to teach him a few minute pieces at the clavier. He could play it flawlessly and with the greatest delicacy, and keeping exactly in time. At the age of 5, he was already composing little pieces which he played to his father, who wrote them down. As a child prodigy, Mozart can play keyboard by just hearing the music that his sister practiced. At age 5, his first complete piece had been created, K1. Theoretically, this piece had a lot of effect in the perspective of a mature composer. However, when you see it as improvisation music by 5-year-old kid, everything just getting different. Nothing but a gifted talent is about to bloom into a master who shall be remembered in the history of human. Later, at 7, after endless training, he wrote another piece, K6. This time, the piece started to have much precise manner in the use of both harmony and structure. It started has the delicacy and simplicity that most of the work of Mozart possessed. Beethoven, no doubt, was a god to most Western musicians. His childhood, on the other hand, was not a story that warms the heart of the children. Beethoven's father was an abusive alcoholic who wished his son to be the second Mozart. However, Beethoven's father never fulfilled his wish in a proper manner. He abuses Beethoven badly. When Beethoven was a child, he often got abused for playing just wrong notes. Sometimes he had been waking up at night and dragged to the front of his father's friends to play for them. The abusive experience gave Beethoven a miserable childhood, but it didn't stop him from being a child prodigy. He learned a lot of music from Bach, Haydn and Mozart. He reached the ceiling of music in classical period is not because only he was a giant, but a giant who stepped on the shoulder of other giants. At the age of 12, Beethoven published his first composition, Variation on March by Dressler. This was a big work that lasts for 7 minutes long and has 9 different variations. You can see that a lot shadow of Mozart exerts a lot of function in the creation. Some say Beethoven was even better than Mozart at the same age. I would say it is because composers like Mozart contribute a better path for Beethoven to be a greater master.